to Beyond the Rings. My name is Jeff Wells. I have the great privilege of leading this incredible international evangelistic ministry. And you're tuning in for another episode of Paris 24 Outreach 30 Stories in 30 Days. So, welcome to episode number 2. And today we continue our stories about what all we got to experience during the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. There are many ways that people are on mission to demonstrate and declare the gospel during the Olympic Games. Many churches will host sporting activities, whether it's soccer camps or sport camps, or they'll have choir and music specials. They'll maybe have testimony nights for athletes or former athletes. But one of the most accessible and popular ways to communicate the gospel is Olympic pin trading. And so we signed a pin and we brought 3,000 of them with us for our 17 days on the ground during the Olympic. Just Olympically speaking, from the opening ceremony to the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games is 17 days. Now, a few events will happen before the opening ceremonies, but everything culminates by the closing ceremony. That's it. That's the end of the Games, 17 days. And so myself and 3 other team members, part of the Beyond the Rings ground team, were on the ground all 17 days. One of us, Tony, was only able to be there for 10 days, but myself, Brandon, and Destiny were able to be there the entire duration of the 17. So here's a few of those stories. This is a picture of a family. For those of you who are listening and don't see the video, it's basically me posing with a picture with a dad, a preteen girl, and a young teen guy. The guy's name is Will, the young boy. And he approached me because he saw all my pins on my hat and on my lanyard and wanted to know if I would be interested in trading pins with him. Now, he didn't have any on, but he pulled out his lanyard full of pins, like mine hanging here, once we got to talking. And he only had a few. He was just getting started, but he had a special pin. He had a pin. In fact, he had several that he had accessible to trading. That was from the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. Now, you know anything about the Olympic history? Both Tokyo 2020, Beijing 2022 were impacted because of the worldwide COVID pandemic. And so instead of the Tokyo 2020 Games held that summer, they postponed them for a year. They were not held until the summer of 2021. And so the only people that were allowed to travel to Tokyo, Japan for the games were the athletes, the coaches, some media, just very limited. So virtually no spectators, which would put guys like myself out of the possibility of being on the ground games. Really, really hated that. I had the privilege of being in Tokyo in the fall of 2019 for a preliminary preview, prayer, and planning trip. Had some great opportunities to prayer walk, Shinto temple, a Buddhist temple while I was in Tokyo, and was really, really looking forward to being back in Tokyo. I love that city. Great lostness there. The Japanese people group is one of the highest unreachable groups on the planet. And so was very, very sad that I was not able to go back as no ministry. So when Will brought out his Tokyo 2020 pins, I was very intrigued. But not only that, Will's dad came up and he basically said, so Will's just kind of getting started in this. Can you give him any tips? I'm like, absolutely. So basically, where we met up, where we ran into each other was this area called a fan zone, which Paris 2024 had set up several of these around Paris. And they were essentially locations where they had jumbo screens displaying events. This particular fan zone, which was right next to the Hotel de Ville, was a very popular, large fan zone. They had lots of activities going on for kids. They had vendors set up for selling food and drinks and so forth. And it was an exciting place to be. And so, sitting right there in the midst of all this chaos, I I gave Will a Olympic pin trading tutorial, if you will. Kind of told him about all the different types of pins, corporate corporate sponsor pins. There are athlete pins. There are ministry pins like ours, and um, many of them are official Olympic Committee pins. I called, but then there are some that are NOC, not official committee pins. And so there are literally thousands of different kinds of pins. And so he was very excited, very receptive. Probably spent about 30 minutes with Will and his dad. His sister was kind of like not that interested, not that much into it. She had a few herself, but she wasn't that engaged as Will was and his dad. So at the end of the day, when everything was said and done, we had traded a couple of pins. I'd gotten that Tokyo. I'd given it another pin that I, but we never trade or sell the gospel pin. It's free, just like God's love for us is. Once we got through all the pin tutorial, we did our pin trading. Said, I've got one more pin I'll give you that has an important story. I went through the entire gospel, pointing in the three circles. If you're not familiar with that, go back and watch the first episode of There's 24, 30 stories in 30 days, because I go through it in that episode. But Will, his dad, very attentive, very tuned in to the gospel message. Once I was finished sharing the gospel, that kind of wrapped up our time together. They were, dad was getting text messages from mom, who was the other side of fan zone, and they had to pretty much move on and didn't have a whole lot of time to go any further with the conversation. But we got a quick picture together, and it was a great encounter. And I share this as an example, one, because pin trading is at the heart of what we do when we're at the Olympics. It is the primary reason we go. It is our main tool, producing, making, bringing, sharing through Olympic pins. And as this encounter with this young teenager and his dad and sister was a great seed planted for the gospel. And that's what we end up doing a lot of time. We're planting seeds. Maybe somebody's never heard the gospel. We're planting a new seed. Or maybe we're watering the seed that has been, maybe somebody's shared the gospel with. Maybe they've been involved with church before. Maybe grandma took them young. Maybe they themselves went for a long time. They never really connected to the gospel message, never made a commitment to follow Christ and follow him. Or maybe they were followers of Christ for a while and they've been in a prodigal seed. But maybe the seed isn't so much a gospel seed as is watering. I like to basically describe Beyond the Rings Olympic Ministry Outreach as a broad reaching, seed planting, evangelistic ministry. So the bulk of our conversations are planting and watering. Occasionally we get to go deeper. We get to see people from death to life by making a commitment to Christ. We always seek to ask him key questions. Like one of the key questions we use in using the Three Circles Gospel tool is everybody in the world is in one of two places. They're in brokenness, God's perfect. Where are you? Kind of wait to hear where they are. Then the follow-up question is, where do you want to be? And almost without fail, people want to be God's perfect design. And then the next question is, well, then what's keeping you from turning and following Jesus right now? And you just, as with you do with every evangelistic opportunity, from the first hello moment of decision, just trust the Holy Spirit. Be obedient in that moment. Say and do whatever the Holy Spirit say and do. And that's what we do. Sometimes it feels short and brief. Sometimes it feels long and we not expect it to go that long. Sometimes we have unexpected opportunities that we didn't think would go anywhere. And then other times we have opportunities cut short because while we thought it was going well, something happened and it came to at the end of the day, we had hundreds of gospel conversations with people like Will and his dad and his sister. Our 17 days, all on the ground, there's 20. So that's yet another story of how God is at work, pointing people to hope, message of Jesus Christ. Thanks for tuning in today. Let me just share with you briefly. You find these stories encouraging and exciting. I want to invite you to come be a part of our Parish 24 outreach celebration. Sunday afternoon, September 29th, 3 p.m. at Concord Church on Tesson Ferry in South St. Louis County. We're going to be having a live time of sharing stories. We're going to feed you desserts and drinks. We're going to be sharing stories, pictures, and video from the Parish 24 outreach. And we do this to celebrate what God has done. And also, we will be using it as a launching pad for the Italy 2026 Beyond the Rings outreach that we are praying for and planning to be on the ground at the next Winter Olympic Games, which come up in February of 2026 in Milan, Cortina, Italy. So we'll also be launching that and taking a love offering that night for that, our next outreach. So we invite you to come and be a part of that. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. God bless y'all. We'll see you then.